Right, so I've definitely been having my fill of fun with Valda, so I thought, why don't we go through the deck, right? So I will start off by saying it's still most likely best to play Guardian as Guardian is probably intended to be played, which is very mid-range to fatiguing, right? You have access to a lot of great blocking cards where you can just block out, cycle stuff away, and then get to a more consistent point with your deck. But that is just not really my playstyle. I like to play fairly aggressively, so I've essentially built the deck around probably almost edging out of the mid-range section even, right? Just being able to throw big dominate attacks as often as possible. So do keep that in mind, right? It is still a very fun deck, but it could probably perform a little bit more optimally again if you take out some of the crazy stuff, for instance, the old one cards, although they are quite fun and they are, a decent chunk of Guardians in the meta, right? People playing stuff out and trying, see what works. So they are definitely fun cards, but you could definitely take them out. You take the Sunk Water Scalers out, for instance, and again, slot in some more defensive stuff. But other than that, in terms of the deck, we will start off with Ley Line. So Ley Line is a very, very interesting card to me because I want to really love it, but I just can't, right? So it is still in the deck, but it is definitely something that I don't think is necessary and could be easily replaced. And the big problem with it is in Valda, it's not significant enough, right? So for every other Guardian, it can be, because getting some chip damage in, getting a one-off, whatever you're trying to do on your following turn can definitely be nice. Maybe not so much in Fatigue, where again you're leaning into your weapon, but for Valda, because you're trying to consistently hit 3 Seismic Surge over and over again, the one that you get from Ley Line just doesn't feel great enough, right? And to make it great enough, you would have to, for instance, build your deck around it. And that could be really, really good, right? If you built your deck around Ley Line, for instance, so instead of taking a whole bunch of 3s and 4s, you take a whole bunch of 5s and 6s, right? And you get that one extra power from being able to have that higher curve. The problem is then you're banking on finding Ley Line as quick as possible. And even if you throw in the Visages, it's not that great, in all honesty. So again, main crux of it is one blue card to throw out to create one Seismic Surge and maybe then every turn get a free one. It's cool. The idea of it replacing Tectonic or just, creating some level of pressure on the board is definitely nice. But again, from what I'm doing, which is, again, trying to always hit 3 Seismic Surge as often as possible, it's just not good enough. Again, going back to, a bit more heftier of a mid-range deck or a fatigue deck, I can definitely see its value, right? Because then it's not so much about using it every turn. It's about having it there for that turn where you can start to line up those dominoes and go 3-3-3-3-3, where you get, Tectonic off, chip damage, maybe one other card creating Seismic Surge, and then that reliance on Ley Line is definitely a little bit better than how I'm utilizing it, for instance. So it can definitely be cut from this list, right? But on that, the big Seismic Surge generation, so we have our Seismic Eruptions, beautiful card for Valda, right? It's so nice having it on an instant. We have Tectonic Instability, great for getting rid of their arsenal, getting that dominate effect across. Can backfire a little bit, obviously, giving them the extra card, but I still find it nice enough. Again, the idea here is just to turbo out 3 Seismic Surges as often as possible. Surface Shaking in 2, so for instance, the Ley Line could probably be a 3rd Surface Shaking. Promising Terrain is also another interesting one, because again, it with just Tectonic is not enough. You need to find that extra thing, and for instance, Crash and Bashes, beautiful. They can definitely come in clutch in that aspect, but you really want, for instance, like a Promising Terrain, Ley Line, and Tectonic. Once you have that trifecta, then it feels really good. The problem is, again, trying to line that up consistently. So, once again, if this was a bit more of a fatigue list where you could cycle them around because they are nice and packable blues, then you could line them up a bit more consistently in that second cycle, and they'd definitely be a lot more worthwhile. But in the deck I'm currently running, again, being a bit more aggressive, you could probably cut out the Promisings and the Ley Line and still get away with what I'm trying to do. Now, in that sense, the deck is almost a little bit hit and miss, right? So, if you can snowball, beautiful. If you can Seismic Surge, get the 3 for Valda every other turn, beautiful. But you can definitely brick, and then, if you don't find the correct piece, it can feel a little bit bad. So I'd almost kind of like a few more of the old one cards, because I do really like the Heave and the fact that they are just a nice big dominate card to then, pummel, for instance, because I am taking all 9 of the pummels. There's the red ones, right? So potentially another 3 of the old one cards. Again, they are really cool effects. It's just a shame that they are Guardian only, right? Although they'd be way too strong if they weren't Guardian only. So destroy all auras, insane. Lose all abilities, that's all cards, so equipment as well, beautiful. And then even smelting, destroying all equipment pieces, it's pretty crazy. It's really nice again, in Valda versus Guardian, because you present a smelting, and it's basically you getting equipment one way or the other, right? So even if they block out with it, that's good for you later, because then you can get a more beneficial crush effect off, right? So yeah, I do like the odd one cards. Shame, right? Guardian only, and they're not just tuned down a little bit, but oh well. Even if I don't know, it'd be so much text, but if it was, this is the effect against Guardian, this is the effect against Guardian, right? But anyway, I digress. So for the pummels, right, the rationale behind all 9 pummels. Aside from the blue boulder drop, every card in the deck is at least 6 power, right? So at 6 power, this means with a blue pummel, they are 8 power, right? Meaning that most likely your opponent has to give 2 cards. Yeah? So without equipment, that's 2 4s. Or if they don't have 4s, right, you've even threw a good chunk of them, then they have to start giving more cards. So you're always going to net 2 to 3 cards basically off of a 6 and a pummel. So even the blue ones to me are still very, very relevant to the deck. Plus, again, you can cycle them away. Same for the late game. Once again, you have chipped through your opponent's equipment, right? Now, in terms of other utility pieces, so Overswing, just a nice heave card, right? So again, I feel like 6 heave in total would be nice. So we're sort of at that with the 5 and it being a blue 3 block that we can cycle around. Heave if need be, get rid of it with the Sunk Water Scalers is definitely nice. Right, aside from that, Prismatic Ley Line. So this being a yellow pitchable, works for the deck, right? It just means, generally speaking, so the way, again, cost-wise, 4 is sort of the average, right? So off of a 4, if we have Valda active, that means we can play it in Pummel, or we can play it in Tectonic, right? And we can still get away with pitching yellow. In that case, we can't. No, we can still Tectonic, but we wouldn't be able to Pummel, right? So I do really like Prismatic Ley Line, because again, we do have a good cohort of blue and yellow attacks-ish, right? But the fact that, again, cycle this way, keep it for the late game, and all of a sudden, you know, Boulder Drop is now a 8, right, off of the Prismatic Ley Line that you can play for free. So I was testing out, like, Slogarithms and any other way to, again, you know, beef up the Dominate number, so the damage does get across. And Prismatic just worked out the best, right? So, yeah, Prismatic is the other big utility piece, and then it's just basically onto the attack. So, for the red, Spinal Crush, I almost feels like this could be probably just sideboarded, right? So Spinal Crush definitely has great use, denying all go again, but there are decks where it doesn't matter so much. So in that scenario, Spinal Crush is, you know, replaced by Battle of Pulp because it is just that 1 extra damage. On that, the Valda spec, which is just a way to, again, you know, turbo out Seismic Surges if it lands. So it doesn't really disrupt, right? And none of this deck, I would say, overly disrupts. That's where we have to really fall back on the pummels. Boulder Drop is nice, but it's a little bit more, you know, blockable by your opponent. So yeah, put them in their place, and all the other ways to generate Seismic Surge, again, adjust there to try and turbo out Valda's ability and have it almost every turn, right? Because if it's every turn and you are consistently chipping down your opponent, then that's beautiful. That's exactly what you want to do. So put them in place is definitely really nice. I almost wish it was they draw that many -1 or something, right? But, you know, it is what it is. It is great for Valda. Probably be a bit too crazy in that. No, would it? I feel like it could have been a little bit more disruptive, but that's my 2 cents. All right, other than that, attack-wise, so again, Boulder Drops, Disruption, and then we have Chokeslam, Debilitate, and Headbutt, because I don't know which is more relevant. I almost feel like the Debilitate is probably the nice enough card because it is always relevant, right? I lose my headpiece too often, so Headbutt's never really a 7. It would be nice if it's a 7, because then again, that works really good with the pummels. And then Chokeslam, they just can't gain any power. It's definitely cool. Doesn't affect weapons, so for instance, Warrior, it's not that great. I don't have enough sideboard options, otherwise it would be, you know, take the specific crush effect for the specific matchup. So yeah, it's a shame that I don't have enough free slots, but you know, we have to take the full set of Arcane. Quick Dodge Flexes could almost be cut, right? But other than that, to swap out, we have Battle of the Pulp, obviously mainly there for Prism. That's the big one. With Battle of Pulp, it really comes into play. Otherwise, it's just another red 10. So again, it could replace Spinal Crush. I don't necessarily want to take it with everything else, right? Because that's a bit too many red attacks that we can, you know, brick a bit too often than what I'd like, right? And then Crush the Week for, well, is it mainly Ninja? I think Ninja Assassin, they're the two, right? Because Mech is definitely getting, you know, a lot more applicable 4s and above. So yeah, I think it's mainly there for Ninja Assassin. That's what comes to mind. So yeah, it's still a really nice card. We take it in yellow, so again, it's at 6, right? So 8 with a pummel. So at either we can get that effect off a bit more easily. So for instance, if it's just blocked out by a 4, right? This plus a blue pummel still does 4. So that's great. So yeah, that's the main rationale for, again, 6 being the lowest point. I would almost like 7 to be the lowest point, because then again it plays around the double 4 block, right? We'll call that slightly higher than average, but we'll call it average-ish, right? So if we did consistently take 7s, it would be kind of nice, but then we sort of lose too many blues for my liking, although you could take out like prismatic. So there's a rationale to maybe try that out, right? I really wish Boulder Drop came in red. Would be perfect to have it in Master Pack Guardian as a red. Other than that, Break Stature and Renounce Grandeur. So Renounce Grandeur being a possible 3/8 is definitely beautiful, right? Especially late game. It's a shame it's a red in that sense, but it doesn't really work out. Otherwise, it'd be lower stats. But yeah, it being a 3 cost is definitely really nice. With Valda, its Disruption I do like more than Break Stature, even though it's a rare. So if they control an aura token, it gets +1, becomes a 3/8, beautiful. And then Crush, if it deals 4 more, they can't create aura tokens during their next turn. So it just turns off all aura token generation, which is definitely really nice of effect. And for instance, works against, Young, right? Because they create it under your control, so they're still the one creating it. At least that's my understanding of it, right? So yeah, it is nice in, whatever matchup it's applicable. Similar with Break Stature, I kind of don't like this being a 5. It's a little bit rough, right? Because again, just getting your perfect pitching, right, off of all your cards. I kind of wish, it had that 1 more point of damage. Same with Spinal Crush, and was a 6, or, go the other way, cut it down a little bit, right? But it is what it is. It's a nice card, but they have to control an aura token. So, ones that come to mind would be Brute with agility tokens. Break Stature is kind of nice, right? And then, again, have to take the Arcane. Arcanite Skullcap is Auxilio and Verdance, right? Yeah, because Auxilio can burst you down, you can activate this, and then Verdance will, heal up. So Arcanite should be fine, and then it's a good amount of AB. Otherwise, Kano, right? You just take all 3 pieces, and then, hope you draw better than them, technically. And then Quick Dodge Flexes. God. Is it really necessary? I'd almost prefer Base of the Mountain for the Guardian Mirror matchups, right? Just to play around there, dominate, right? I don't think I get enough value out of Quick Dodge Flexes, even in wide matches, because again, we just have so much other available block through the equipment. The general gist of the playstyle is, you want to try and go first, because if you go first, you have enough set up in the deck where you can try and hit your Seismic Surges, and then it's basically just send something big, block out with equipment, send something big, hopefully tear through their equipment at that point, and then you start dominating, landing the crush effects, and you feel really good until you miss your Seismic Surge generation. But there are a few cards as maybes, right? So Command and Conquer and Lion Strike and Rouse the Ancients could definitely slot in and, make it a bit more powerful. But I want to try and keep it cheap. The problem is, Testament is just so good. Tectonic is so good. Gauntlets are really good as well. There was another headpiece that didn't cross my mind that a player at my my LGS pointed out that's really nice, and Civic Pink, right? So whenever this defends another target hero draws a card, and getting the 1 Seismic Surge out of that can be really, really nice, because often I can get to 2, but then I'm relying on, for instance, drawing a Crash and Bash to get to that 3rd one. So Civic Peak could be really, really good in that circumstance. But again, I don't necessarily feel like there's enough disruption with Guardian, right, to make, for instance, Civic Peak or Tectonic Instability really great value. They're good value, but just not really great value. I also want a different weapon. Titan's Fist is cool, but I don't have super incentive to swing it, right? If there was a weapon that's worked with Seismic Surges, that'd be kind of cool. If there was a weapon that, got buffed if you controlled or created a Seismic Surge, that'd be cool. But, oh well, one day maybe we get a Valda Hammer or a Valda Gauntlet, right? Is there any depiction of her with a weapon? Because even put them in their place is just a nice big fist. So yeah, like a gauntlet, right? A fist weapon would be cool. But other than that, we have again another set of the old ones. Seismic Stir is also interesting, right? So in yellow, you pitch a blue and it's this plus Tectonic, that's your 3. So that would definitely be nice. I kind of want it, right? It feels like I'm sort of missing that final set of Seismic Surge generation for some of the more grindy matchups. Probably being replaced with Prismatic Ley Line, right? Other than that, Buckling Blow, because again, I can't quite decide on which blues I want, right? And equipment does matter, but again, we're throwing out really big stuff that often demands your opponent blocking with equipment, so I don't necessarily feel like this is relevant enough or early enough, right, for us to send it, because, we want to play through our reds, cycle away, then play through our blues once, we're in that late game and they have less available block, right? Then Terra Sunder is also nice, but, the main gist of Terra Sunder would be to swing your weapon, and to do that, 4 is not super great, 5 Dominate is not super great, right? So, Yeah, I think it's a little too costly to chuck in the deck. So yeah, that's the deck. I'm again very much enjoying it. If you were to competitively tune it, I would definitely throw in, like staunch responses, sinks, a bit more block, and then rely on cycling around and setting up the late game string of Seismic Surge. But yeah, it's still really fun, and it does seemingly well, right? Other than that, I do have a Blitz variant I'm very curious to try out. Because again, the general gist is just turboing out Dominate and throwing big Dominate attacks and Blitz. Seems really, really cool in theory, right? But the question is, would it work too well? So it's very much similar list, right? Just sort of pruned down. So again, boulder drops because of the disruption, all the pummels, and then all now nice juicy ways to make Seismic Surge as easy as possible. And then, Tectonic Instability, cycling away the Arsenal card and getting the Dominate off then would be really good. I mean, the general idea would be, if you could, what was it? Yeah, because I'm taking Crater Hoof. So if you could Crater Hoof turn 1, send a 10, get damage, right? And then, Seismic Surge, 10, dominate would be really cool. Hence why I want all 6 of the old ones. The other thought there is to take all of the sunken so that you can sink them, get the block value out of there, as well as the Seismic Surge generation. Because with the heap cards, it's what? Why? It's 6, technically, right? We'd have to throw in Tectonic. I also really want to run Richter Scale, but I didn't realize it doesn't have Go Again, which just makes it so awful, right? Yeah, it's just so awful. Why doesn't it have Go Again? It's meant to be the tempo version of Tectonic Plating, right? This is just awful. Yeah, so it would be 6 old 1 cards, the Seismic Eruption, right? So again, easy enough to complete. All you need is a blue in this card. Eruption by itself. Grandeur is always nice, right? Then Tectonic is 1 extra. It allows us to hit it with Promising Terrain to get the 4 off out of it. Ley Line's probably a bit more relevant because smaller deck, easier to find. And again, just trying to get 3, 3, 3, and just dominate them down for Blitz seems nice, right? And then, yeah, General Arcane. I don't want to give up Crater Hooves because I think the Dominate's a lot more relevant in Blitz, since, lower life format. Plus, we have that little extra HP. But I think we'll leave it there. So yeah, I'll put the decks in the descriptions, and how are you going with your Guardian shenanigans, right? It's good. I'm getting it all out because Super Slam's fast approaching, and I don't know, I bit off more than I can chew with High Seas because I wanted to play Marlin and Puffin and kind of Gravy, right? And then I really just ended up playing Marlin. So I'm hoping I can stick to it and I can end up playing both Pleiades and our rock-loving Tough Nut, right? But we'll have to see. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Yeah.